Ramirez looked at my documents, looked at Carol, looked back at me. Ma'am, he told Carol, he's got documentation showing property ownership. That's not trespassing. This is a civil property dispute. You claim the Hoa owns the road. He claims he owns the road. That's exactly what makes it civil. You need to either give him access or take it to court. I'm not arresting anyone for a property line disagreement. Carol's jaw clenched so tight I thought her teeth would shatter, but she eventually pulled out her phone. Typed in the gate code, I memorized it instantly, and the gate swung open. This isn't over, she hissed as I drove past. I got up to the cabin. It was worse than I'd expected. Windows broken, roof leaked, but the structure was sound. Gramps built things to last. I spent the weekend cleaning, documenting damage, taking photos for insurance. And that's when I found it, in the back of the closet, behind a false panel Gramps had installed. There was a small fireproof safe. The combination was my birth year. Inside, everything I needed. A stack of manila folders, each document in a plastic sleeve. On top, a sticky note in Gramps' handwriting. John, if anyone gives you trouble about the road, this box has everything you need. Love, Gramps. I photographed every single page and uploaded them to 3 different cloud storage services. Cybersecurity paranoia pays off, people. Here's the bombshell. First, the original 1950 to land patent. Federal government to James Miller. 1,200 acres. Fee simple absolute. That's lawyer talk for. You own it, period. No strings. Second, the 1989 survey maps. They showed the subdivision sat entirely within that 45-acre parcel Gramps sold. Everything else, the upper valley, the road, the spring, still belonged to his estate. It belonged to me. Third, the purchase agreement from that 89 sale. I read it 3 times. There was a clause highlighted in yellow. Buyer acknowledges seller retains ownership and control of all access roads, trails, and infrastructure outside platted lots. Access rights granted via easement subject to an annual maintenance fee of $1,000, escalating 3% annually, payable to seller by January 15th each year. I did the quick math. From 2010, when Gramps died, to 2025, that's 15 years of unpaid fees. At 3% compound escalation, the developer, and now the Hoa, owed Gramps' estate roughly $47,000. And the agreement said, if fees went unpaid for more than 1 year, the easement terminated. The developer had defaulted. The Hoa had no legal easement. They'd been using my private road without permission for 15 years. Fourth, the water rights certificate from 1968. Gramps had filed for the spring that fed the creek. In Colorado, water rights are first in time, first in right. Gramps' claim predated the subdivision by 50 years. I own the water source. I sat on the cabin floor, documents spread around me like puzzle pieces, and I started laughing. It wasn't a nice laugh. It was the sound of a very tired man realizing he held all the cards. Monday morning, I called my mom's old college roommate, Eliza Reed. She's a real estate attorney in Denver, a specialist in property disputes. I sent her photos of everything. She called back 2 hours later. John, I could hear the grin in her voice. Do you understand what you have here? I think so, Eliza. That old rancher just handed you a nuclear option, she said. They've been trespassing on your property for 15 years. They owe you 47 grand, and you control their water supply. This isn't a property dispute. This is checkmate. What do I do? We file a formal notice with the county recorder documenting your ownership and the easement default. We send certified copies to the Hoa and Carol personally. We give them 72 hours to remove any obstructions from your property. And then she paused for effect if they don't. You take your bolt cutters and remind them who owns that road. Wednesday morning, Eliza filed the paperwork. Thursday, the certified letters went out. I spent the weekend walking the property with an old surveyor who'd worked with Gramps. We found the original survey monuments, photographed them, documented everything. Monday morning, 72 hours after our notice, the gate was still there. So I drove down with the surveyor filming, read a prepared statement aloud, identifying myself as the property owner, and I cut that chain with the biggest, baddest bolt cutters Home Depot sells. Click, clack. The chain hit the dirt. I dragged the gate to the side of the road and posted new signs. Private road. Easement access by permission only. Owner, J. Miller. My phone rang within 10 minutes. It wasn't Carol. It was a lawyer. A semi-retired guy named Mitchell Barnes who sounded way over his head. Mr. Miller, I represent the Shadow Creek Estates Hoa. You've destroyed Hoa property and were filing an emergency restraining order. You'll be served tomorrow. Mr. Barnes, I replied, staying perfectly calm. I didn't destroy Hoa property. I removed an obstruction from my private property. Your client installed a gate without my permission on land I own. I have documentation. Your client has no recorded easement. We'll see what the judge says. He hung up. That evening, I was served with the lawsuit. Emergency hearing scheduled for Friday morning. Carol was asking the court to bar me from the road, claiming I was threatening community safety and that removing the gate was destruction of property. She even included affidavits from 8 homeowners claiming harassment. I'd met exactly 0 of these people, but Carol wasn't done being petty. Tuesday morning, the county code enforcement officer, Dale Morrison, showed up. Apologetic guy, tired expression, clipboard in hand. Got a complaint about an unpermitted structure. He said, looking at the cabin, this place was built in 1954, I said. It's grandfathered under every code that exists. Dale walked the perimeter. Yeah, this is clearly legal construction. Someone is wasting my time. Out of curiosity, who filed the complaint? He glanced at his clipboard. Can't officially say, but the form came in on Hoa letterhead. Noted. He handed me his card. If they keep filing bogus complaints, let me know. We take false reporting seriously. After he left, I drove to Denver to meet Eliza in person. She was laughing as she reviewed the lawsuit. John, this is amateur hour. She doesn't even allege she owns the gate. That's not a legal basis for anything. So what do? We file a counter motion. We ask the court for declaratory judgment. We want the judge to formally declare, once and for all, who owns what.
We spent the afternoon preparing. Meanwhile, Carol was busy at home. She called an emergency Hoa board meeting and pushed through a special assessment, $5,000 per household to fund the lawsuit. Several board members were uncomfortable, but Carol steamrolled them. One guy, Mr. Davison, a retired teacher, voted no. He asked for more information about the property dispute. Do you want property values to collapse because some squatter is camping in the woods? She snapped. Davison sat down, but he didn't forget. Wednesday morning, I was back at the cabin doing repairs when a silver sedan pulled up. Out stepped Mr. Davison, mid-60s, glasses, cardigan. He looked nervous. Mr. Miller, I'm on the whole board. Can we talk? We sat on the porch. He showed me a folder. I didn't know about any of this until last week. Most of us didn't. Carol told us the road was county maintained. After that meeting, I pulled the county GIS records. That road isn't on any county map. We've been lied to. I showed him everything. The land patent, the survey maps, the defaulted easement, the water rights certificate. Mr. Davison went pale. She told us we own the road. You never did. The HOA was formed in 2018. Gramps died in 2010. There's an 8-year gap where nobody paid the easement fees. The easement terminated by default. What happens now? He asked. Friday, we go to court. If Carol can't prove ownership or easement rights, the judge dismisses her restraining order. Then we negotiate. I'm willing to grant a new easement, but the Hoa needs to acknowledge my ownership and pay the back fees. That sounds fair. Davison said slowly. Can I testify if needed? Talk to your own lawyer first. But yeah, if you're willing, called the sheriff's department, claiming my truck was an abandoned vehicle on the road. Officer Ramirez showed up for the third time that week. He looked exhausted. John, I'm sorry she's calling every day. I've documented all of this as harassment of you, not the other way around. Off the record, her husband used to be county planning commissioner. She's used to getting her way. Ethics thing? I asked. You didn't hear it from me. He replied. I left. I immediately set up trail cameras around the cabin. Cybersecurity paranoia again. The first night of footage, deer, raccoons, and at 2 a.m. Carol's black SUV driving slowly past the cabin turnoff, then turning around. I texted the footage to Eliza. She replied, That's called surveillance. Save everything. She's building a case that you're dangerous. Let her build one that she's unhinged. Friday morning, we walked into the courthouse. Judge Sandra Portman presiding. No nonsense energy. Carol sat at the plaintiff's table with Barnes. Judge Portman looked at Carol's filing. Miss Jensen, I reviewed your emergency motion. You're seeking to bar Mr. Miller from a road you claim as HOA property. Do you have a deed showing ownership? Barnes stood up. Your Honor, the road is within the community boundaries and has been maintained by the HOA for several years. We're relying on implied easement and prescriptive use. Counselor, Judge Portman said, not looking up. That's not what I asked. Do you have a deed or recorded easement agreement? We're claiming rights based on continuous use. So that's a no. Awkward silence. Eliza stood. Your Honor, we have the recorded deed showing Mr. Miller owns the access road. We have the 1989 subdivision agreement showing only 45 acres were sold. We have survey maps confirming boundaries. And we have the easement agreement showing it terminated due to non-payment in 2011. She laid out the documents like playing cards. Judge Portman reviewed them for 5 minutes. Finally, she looked at Barnes. Double quotes Mr. Barnes. Based on preliminary review, Mr. Miller appears to have a superior claim to road ownership. I'm granting your continuance, but I'm denying the restraining order. Mr. Miller may continue accessing his property without restriction. If you can't produce documentation at the next hearing, I'm dismissing this case and will discuss sanctions for frivolous litigation. Gavel done. In the parking lot, Carol confronted me. You think you're so smart? You'll never win this. I know people. Tell your attorney to call mine. I said, we can negotiate easement terms. I'm not negotiating anything. She peeled out. That weekend, they installed a second gate. Heavy steel, keypad locked. This one was on a 45-acre subdivision parcel. Technically their property, but it blocked my only way out to the county road. Can she do this? I called Eliza. It's murky, Eliza said. She can't block your road, so she's blocking the exit. It's a technical loophole. Monday morning, I was stuck for the first time. Then, Tuesday, I woke to the sound of heavy machinery. I hiked down to investigate. A construction crew was digging a trench across the road, right at the edge of the subdivision property line. 6 feet deep, 10 feet wide. Completely IMPASSIBLE. The foreman saw me. HOA hired us for emergency drainage work. Lady said it was emergency. I photographed everything. Called Eliza. Called Dale Morrison. Dale arrived within the hour. He was pissed. They don't have a permit. Road work requires 72-hour notice. I'm issuing a stop work order right now. Fill that trench back in, or your company gets fined. But the damage was done. The road was impassable until they repaired it. I sat on a boulder, looking at that trench, and something Gramps used to say came back to me. When someone tries to take your water, son, you got them by the throat. And that's when I remembered the spring. I pulled out Gramps' water rights certificate again. 1968. Senior priority status. I followed the pipe from the spring house. It fed directly into a holding tank at the edge of the subdivision. Their entire water system ran off my spring. What happens if I shut off their water? Eliza. Legally, you could. She said, you own the source. You have senior rights. Practically, that's a nuclear option. Every resident would turn against you. It would drag out in court for years. I don't want to shut it off, I said. I just want them to know I could. That's called leverage. Wednesday, I got a call from a freelance journalist named Valerie Stone. Mr. Miller, I saw your story on Reddit. You've got about 2,500 upvotes. I cover land use issues. Can we talk? She drove up Thursday. We spent 3 hours going through the documents, the timeline, the gates, the trench. This is bigger than your personal dispute, she said. HOA letters are claiming authority over access roads they don't own. Your story illustrates the problem perfectly. Valeri's Friday afternoon, titled, Hoa President Blocks Landowner from His Own Property While Profiting from Management Fees. It detailed the dispute, included photos of my documents, and exposed Carol's husband's ethics scandal. The viral moment was a side-by-side image. Left, Carol's letter claiming Hoa ownership. Right, the county recorder screenshot showing John Miller as owner. Caption, one of these is a recorded public record. The other is creative writing.
It exploded. 8,000 shares in 24 hours. That evening, I got an email from Sandra, the Hoa Vice President. Subject line, request for meeting. Mr. Miller, several board members were unaware of the full situation. We would like to request a meeting with you and Miss Reed to discuss potential resolution. Carol will not be present. It was ceased to 6 of the 7 board members. Everyone except Carol. Saturday morning, I met with the board at Mr. Davison's house. These were normal people, retirees, families. They weren't the enemy. Carol was. Mr. Miller, Sandra started, we owe you an apology. Most of us didn't know Carol had a financial stake in this. She told us the road was county maintained and you were trying to claim it illegally. Eliza, on speakerphone, walked them through the facts, the 1,000 to 100-acre patent, the limited 45-acre sale, the defaulted easement, the water rights. You could watch their faces fall as she talked. What would a reasonable solution look like? Sandra asked. I gave them my proposal. I'm willing to grant a formal easement for road access, but the Hoa needs to acknowledge my ownership, pay the back fees, and we need a maintenance agreement that's fair. The back fees, $47,000, spread over 10 years. That was for $1,700 a year, split among 40 households. $118 per household per year. Davison did the math on his phone. That's less than we pay Carol's management company per month. Exactly. The board voted right there. 6-0. They would approve the settlement and immediately begin proceedings to remove Carol Jensen as president and terminate her LLC management contract, which brings us back to the start. I'm standing there, facing Carol, who is still sputtering about trespassing. The entire weight of my victory now resting on my quiet phone screen. Ma'am, I repeat, looking her dead in the eye, you just installed a padlock on my road. You need to call your attorney, Mr. Barnes, because he's about to get an earful from the Hoa board who just voted to pay me $47. Zero for the easement you defaulted on. And as for the water source you're screaming about, I own it. And now the board knows I own it, too. This is my valley. I'm going home. I turn to Officer Ramirez. Officer, I have an easement negotiation pending. I'm just going to proceed up to my cabin now. Ramirez nods, a tiny, almost imperceptible smile touching his lips. He looks at Carol, whose jaw has gone slack. Ma'am, you need to step away from the property owner. I get back in my truck, start the engine, and drive past the defeated, silent woman who thought her petty Hoa title made her untouchable. I drive up the road Gramps built, past the forest, back to Juniper Mesa. The sun is setting, turning the valley floor gold. It was the closest thing to magic I've ever known. And now it was my this whole ordeal to burn out. The documents. The petty war with a total stranger, it taught me one massive lesson. Never let your legacy gather dust. That cabin, that land, it wasn't just property. It was leverage, protection, and a deep-rooted truth about ownership that no amount of Hoa power tripping could ever touch. But what about you? Have you ever had to fight back against a community association that overstepped? Did you win? Did you have to uncover some hidden rule or forgotten deed to find justice? Drop a comment below and share your story, because trust me, every one of us who owns property has a Carol Jensen story lurking in the shadows. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this ride, and let me know what legal loophole you've been dying to exploit.